Sam, and today I'm speaking about the legal trouble of Donald Trump, as I predicted a few weeks ago. This is an excellent case study in the planetary transits, cycles, and how they intersect with a person's natal chart. I predicted many types of legal corrections at this time, including things in the courts relative to the US insurrection, also even globally and around the world as it relates to women's issues and other types of uprisings. But today I'm going to focus squarely on what recently happened with the former President Trump being subpoenaed by the January 6th committee, and also as savage loss through the Supreme Court today on October 13th. I'm going to be looking at his chart and the transits and giving a lot of background. Like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube to get notified of new videos and live streams. Also, leave a comment, share it with others on Facebook, Twitter, or other social media platforms. So as I said, I've predicted here and been speaking quite a bit about the retrograde Jupiter, the retrograde Saturn, bringing a lot of issues in legal system. We also just had, in fact, yesterday, Alex Jones, the conspiracy theorist, just got handed a devastating verdict against him, $1 billion that he owes the people of Sandy Hook, where he turned them into a right-wing cause, that they were crisis actors, that it wasn't real. He just got a huge court settlement against him. We also see insurrectionists being tried, the Proud Boys and all of those people. And of course, the main focus of this video is Donald Trump and the terrible day that he had being subpoenaed, and also a terrible loss in the Supreme Court. To start off, I'm going to play a video that I made on October 4th, where I describe these things in advance. I also would say that I would not be surprised if by the time we get to this eclipse, we might actually see an indictment of Trump, especially when Mercury moves into this. It might even be soon. It might be in the middle of October. I wouldn't be surprised, because Mercury in Virgo is going to be aspecting this Jupiter in Pisces. I wouldn't be surprised if, as we get closer to this eclipse, and again, particularly as Mercury is in right around here, Jupiter 7, Mercury 654. Mercury aspecting this Jupiter up here could show maybe not an indictment, but again, Trump is in so much legal trouble. The document scandal is just a quagmire that keeps getting worse. Totally self-created. Anyway, not to get into the specifics of it, but there's so many places where there could be an indictment. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. Jupiter's retrograde in his 8th house. He's in Jupiter, I think he's in Jupiter Mercury Dasha. I'm not sure. Anyway, also this, this eclipse also isn't a very favorable one for him as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was an actual indictment at some point. Maybe even soon, especially with this Mercury being opposed, that Jupiter maybe shock the world with that. So as you see, I talked about how around the middle of October, we could really see a surprising sort of shock the world moment where, again, these legal troubles with Trump get worse and worse. Again, there are so many, it's hard to know whether it's going to be in the Mar-a-Lago document case, whether it's going to be in January 6th, whether it could be the New York AG. He's got a big lawsuit there also down in Georgia. But again, these transits are lining up where this exalted Mercury aspected that Jupiter in Pisces. Now, Mercury was just retrograde. All these retrograde planets are where we're reflecting on things. And one of the things you could say about that is, as it relates to the legal system, gathering evidence. Gathering evidence, and then when the planets start moving forward, we start moving forward with what we've gathered. That's exactly what the January 6th committee did, and it could be very much what happens with A.G. Garland very soon as Saturn starts moving forward around October 23rd, I think. We have this eclipse in Libra. Again, Libra is the justice system, the legal system, Lady Liberty with the scales and all of that. Very much a Libra symbol, and these are not good times for the former president. His dashas don't line up well, and also the transits, etc., which I'm going to talk about in greater detail in a minute. But that's the backdrop and the context of why I said that on October 4th. Now again, he wasn't indicted, so to speak, but he was subpoenaed, which then paves the way for an indictment. And again, realize this is a huge thing. to subpoena a former president. And what it does is it puts him now on the hot seat and say, okay, so you're going to show up, you say it's a witch hunt, you say you're you say you're not guilty, even though all of the people in your cabinet are the ones on tape, on video, testifying against you, your lawyer, your assistants, all these people. These aren't a bunch of Democrats that we're watching on camera talk about how you behaved. It's a big witch hunt. You want to come and tell us? Of course, he's not going to. If he did, he would plead the fifth, like, Roger Stone and all these other people did, but he won't do it. This literally paves the way for them to actually issue an indictment for failing to honor a subpoena. Doubt they'll do that, but the reason this is so powerful in one sense is because they're showing the magnitude and the seriousness of this. And it also just shows the fact that any reasonable person would conclude, which is, if you're innocent, come and tell us all. For example, if they were accusing you of insurrection, and they subpoenaed you, you would say, yes, let me come and testify. I didn't do it. But of course, we have so much evidence. I'm not even going to go into that part of it because it's a foregone conclusion. This was what I basically alluded to, is that the pressure was going to get ramped up. And we haven't hit that eclipse yet either. The chart of the moment that the subpoena was passed down. It was October 13th, 2022 at 3:27 p.m. in Washington, D.C. You see very powerful Saturn in the ascendant, Capricorn ascendant, and those planets, Sun, Mercury, and Venus, are in the 9th house of the court system and justice. And they're aspecting that Jupiter in the 3rd house, that retrograde Jupiter in Pisces. We also have Moon Mars in the 5th house. Moon is the 7th house ruler. Mars is the 4th house ruler. And they're in the 5th house of creativity and intelligence and skill and inspiration. The 5th and 9th houses are the most related to things like the legal system, justice, wisdom, knowledge, and bringing those things out into the world. Again, there are people who don't want to hear this, but this is a function of bringing the truth into the light. It's also a matter of these consequences, which is Saturn and Capricorn. You see all these earth signs now, and the earth tends to bring out the tangible, practical results. Maybe we have a lot of feelings about what we think, but there's an expression now that's going around, facts don't care about your feelings. I did watch a certain portion of the January 6th hearings, and boy, it's quite a lockdown case they have, which is incredibly factual. They got the receipts, text messages, documents, video, everything of record, and they laid it out really well before the final end when they declared that they were going to subpoena Trump, and they did a roll call vote for such a thing. That moment and the chart that shows that moment is a case study in itself. Then when you lay it next to Trump's chart, you can see how that moment of harsh reality for some coming into existence impacts someone who has maybe not been truthful. So when we look at Trump's chart, we can see a few things that really jump out at us. First, it's a Leo ascendant, Mars right on the ascendant. It's in Magha Nakshatra, which has to do with legacy. It's also the nakshatra of like the king and royalty. He also was born on a lunar eclipse where we have a debilitated moon with Ketu in the 4th house, and then we have the sun with Rahu in the 10th house. In particular, that Ketu moon in his 4th house is really that kind of sort of like the roots and the origin of his dishonesty, of his, thin-skinned lashing out. And what we've been seeing for these last couple years as he's been in Jupiter Mercury is all of these secrets coming out, this explosiveness, this emotional turmoil that he seems to constantly be in where he's not honest. Again, it's the 12th house ruler debilitated. 12th house means secrets. And it's also with Ketu, which brings a sort of relentless focus to hide those things. The reason it's coming out now so much is because he's in Jupiter Mercury, and Mercury is the ruler of Jyeshta Nakshatra. Of course, Jyeshta Nakshatra is also very important for him. Jyeshta was the king of the gods and the warrior, so he has this emotional warrior mentality. But it's a very thin-skinned, even extremely dishonest one where, again, the 12th house ruler is debilitated. 12th house is secrets, and those secrets go deep into the heart, and then they explode out. And right now they're exploding out, just like they did when he lost the election. That happened when Ketu went over that moon Ketu, and that's also when the insurrection happened, when Ketu in the sky went over his natal Ketu moon. Now that was in Jupiter Saturn Dasha. We're in a different time now. But this transit of Ketu is generally not friendly and good for Trump, at least in this context.
And this context means this dasha cycle that he's in right now, Jupiter-Mercury. As we see, Jupiter-Mercury has been very difficult because it's exposing and bringing out all of those secrets, and it's bringing it out in the media with information and data and documents. That's very Mercury. And also his words. His words are just going to come back to get him when he ever goes to trial, if he's ever indicted and goes to trial. All of these words that he says, all of these lies, all of this hiding things, this document scandal. Look at the document scandal in Mar-a-Lago, taking all of these classified, top secret documents. He takes them and then doesn't give them back. He still hasn't given them back. And by the way, those of you who think this is just nothing, you know, we have a lot of sensitive information in this country and around the world with other leaders and whatnot. Who knows where all of that information is? It's extremely dangerous. Now again, if any of us had done it, we would have already been indicted and thrown in jail by now. Him as Leo and those planets in Magha and whatnot, this is one way why he seems to always get away with this stuff, because there's also this fear that he'll, you know, summon his masses if anything happens. But the game is kind of up on this, or at least it's shifting now, because there's also a lot of pressure on the Attorney General Garland now to actually do something. More and more pressure mounting, like, why don't you indict this guy? There's so much evidence on so many levels to indict him that it's shocking that it hasn't happened yet. So this Jupiter-Mercury cycle has really been difficult because, again, Jupiter is this retrograde 8th house ruler in the 2nd, which again shows these consequences of that, you know, frankly, lying nature, constantly misleading people, and it's Jupiter-Mercury. So Mercury rules the Jupiter in the 2nd house, and it also rules that Ketu moon in the 4th. And all of this is catching up with him because it's Jupiter, which is the legal system. I said when he was finally elected that one of the things that I feared was that all of his legal problems were going to come out in the Jupiter cycle, and if he's the president of the United States, his legal problems become our problems. So there's so many. There's 4 main ones. Of course, the January 6th, there's the Mar-a-Lago documents, there's the New York AG with the Trump organization, which is a document case. It's kind of cut and dry. He's going to lose that because it's all documented. It's not even opinions. And then there's also the Georgia election fraud scandal. Those are 4 main ones, but there are also civil suits against him with sexual harassment and other kinds of things. So the bottom line now, and what I was referring to back then, what I saw was that Mercury finally going direct, exalted Mercury, aspecting that Jupiter up there, who is still retrograde, but is still in a high place of justice because it's in Pisces, was going to bring out the truth, and it goes over his natal Jupiter as well. His natal retrograde Jupiter is also getting this transit of that Mercury. So we're getting all of this revelation. Today we got new video of all of the Congress people while the insurrection was going on, trying to get some help, trying to get some relief. We got it reaffirmed that Trump was doing nothing for 2.5 hours while, or it might have even been longer, while the Capitol was under siege. Again, we saw more video. They even mentioned really very much about the Supreme Court case that was just decided against him in the Mar-a-Lago document scandal. So he asked for a special master to review the documents. Then he goes to the Supreme Court to tell the special master not to review certain documents. His whole thing in this Mar-a-Lago documents case is such a complete mess that it's hard to even keep straight. But needless to say, another legal delaying tactic, which is all it is, it failed today in a devastating way. He was hoping that the Supreme Court would help to bail him out, and it didn't. So again, in any of these matters, there's enough evidence right now, even just what that we see, to bring an indictment. And so what I'm saying here basically about the transits is Mercury moving forward, exalted, aspecting Jupiter. Saturn is about to move forward. We're about to have an eclipse in his 3rd house as well, where again, Jupiter Mercury is not very friendly for him at all. That's a lot piling up. A lot of this has been happening in Jupiter Mercury Moon and then Jupiter Mercury Mars. It's about to be Jupiter Mercury Rahu, which Rahu is generally a little bit favorable for him, but in this case, coming after Jupiter Mercury, it's really not, because Rahu again tends to expose things and blow things up. It's actually joined his sun in the 10th house, which will bring recognition, not necessarily power, but it's also ruling Mercury in Ardra, which again, this is a very strong nakshatra of punishment and of having to reckon for your mistakes and lies and confusing rhetoric and confusing communication style. I do not see Jupiter, Mercury, Rahu as being much of an improvement, if any type of improvement, especially as we're about to have this eclipse. In Trump's D9 chart, which is the chart of the legal system, you can see that it's a Gemini rising, and the ruler, Mercury, goes into the 9th house, which is one of the reasons why he seems to have good luck, or he does have good luck with litigation, both through delays or in fact just never even getting charged for things that he's clearly done wrong. Even saw his previous lawyer, Michael Cohen, go to jail for something that Trump clearly did, which was pay money to a porn actress. The guy who ordered it didn't go to jail or even get, indicted, but his lawyer did. But in Trump's D10, Mercury is definitely not as powerful. It's the 12th house ruler in Scorpio in the 2nd house, which can also show a sort of loss of value and values that come through all of these Mercury secrets. Again, those secrets are also shown in the natal chart because Mercury rules that moon Ketu in Scorpio. So you can see why he benefits through the legal system by either not getting charged or having cases dismissed or delayed. In his career, like his job and whatnot, it doesn't really help him as much. He's definitely had a loss of stature in Jupiter Mercury. And it's not over yet. He's in Jupiter Mercury until October of 2023. But I will say Jupiter Ketu may be an improvement because Ketu rules his Mars and his ascendant in Leo. Again, having this come in Jupiter Mahadasha with all of these problems and this retrograde kind of exposition makes it so it's quite ambiguous, but I'm not thinking it's going to help him as much. Also, his Ketu, as is already said, is joined the moon in Scorpio. This is a debilitated moon, and all of that baggage coming with Ketu will also be front and center in Jupiter Ketu. So again, the reason it's such a loss is it's really forcing Trump's hand. It's really showing that unless you're really indoctrinated into thinking, what those people in his orbit think, you realize we can't have this guy. I mean, this is too dangerous. It also reveals where, for all the tough talk, he won't come and raise his hand and tell the truth. Now again, for a certain part of the country, it doesn't matter because they're indoctrinated into believing everything he says. But for other people, that's everybody else, it just keeps chipping away more and more and more. Even if you liked him before and were kind of willing to believe that people are against him and the media and all like that, it just gets too hard to maintain at some point. It just keeps chipping away, particularly at what would be like independent voters and whatnot. So I know sometimes it's difficult for people when they like Trump and they think it's just my bias, my political bias and whatnot. I don't really know how else to say this, but these are events that are happening. I said they could happen. We're seeing them happen. So however you think this might be my bias, you might examine your bias if you think that's what I'm doing. It's not biased to say he doesn't tell the truth. It's not biased to say all these legal problems are happening. None of it is biased. Because your bias would be, in spite of all of this, he's innocent. His lawyers, his aides, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, his son, all of them said, call off the insurrection. And he didn't do it. All the people testifying are Republicans. They were his inner circle. He took those documents. He could give them back. He still hasn't. He's told 1,000 lies about them. They were planted. I never took them. I did take them. I can declassify them just by thinking about it. Really? That's convincing? So again, before you kill me over my bias, examine yours. Anyway, underneath it all, this is an astrological case study, and I hope it helped you. For a limited time, I'm offering 10 hours of masterclasses, Yoga and Vedic Astrology, Quantum Vedic Astrology, and Spiritual Astrology Masterclass. These are 3 great courses that will really help you a lot. Now, in case you don't know who I am, I taught the AstroVed certification course, Dattatreya Shiva Baba, in 2010. Ravi Shankar published my book in 2018. I've been around for decades. I've been teaching these great classes, and if you go to VedicAstrologyEssentials.com, you can get this 90% off discount of these 3 great classes, more than 10 hours, guaranteed value. You can check this out. These 3 classes will give you all the necessary tools to begin to learn Vedic astrology. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic Astrology Teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly, and I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction.